The night sky over Earth was quiet and calm at first. People in every city looked up at the stars, the way they always had. Lovers walked along the riverside. Children pointed at constellations their parents could barely remember. It was ordinary life. It was peace. But then a single flash lit the heavens, and the ordinary world died. At first it looked like a falling star, bright, fast, burning. But it did not fade. It grew brighter and larger, and then split into many lights, dozens, then hundreds. They streaked across the sky in formation like soldiers marching. It was not a meteor shower. It was something alive and deliberate and terrible. Alarms began to scream in the cities. Radar stations picked up signals too vast to measure. The skies burned as alien ships the size of mountains entered orbit. Their hulls glowed with strange energy. They moved with perfect silence, as if the air itself refused to touch them. People watched in horror as the stars they once loved were blotted out by the black shapes of warships. The Galactic Empire had arrived. At first there was confusion. News anchors stumbled over their words, switching between languages as broadcasts flickered across the globe. Military commanders shouted for calm, while soldiers scrambled to posts they knew would not matter. In the streets, people froze. Some filmed the sky with shaking hands. Some fell to their knees and prayed. Others screamed and ran, though there was nowhere to run to. Above every nation, the Empire's fleet spread its shadow wide enough to cover continents. Then, the first message came. Every screen lit up. Every radio cracked to life. Even the oldest devices hummed with sound. The voice was calm, deep, alien. It spoke words in every tongue of Earth at once. This world belongs to the Galactic Empire. Your leaders will surrender all weapons. Your people will kneel, refuse, and you will burn. The words came without anger, without emotion, like a teacher reciting facts. It was not a threat, it was law. The silence that followed was heavier than the voice itself. Governments gathered in hidden bunkers. World leaders whispered and argued. The military knew the truth first. The war was already lost. Satellites showed. Thousands of ships in orbit, each capable of destroying cities with a single strike. Earth's defenses were old, fragile, weak compared to what hung above. But no leader wanted to be the one who gave up humanity's freedom. No one wanted to be the one remembered for bowing. In the cities, panic turned into chaos. Cars jammed the highways as families tried to flee inland, though no place was safe. Crowds stormed airports, fighting to escape on planes that had nowhere to go. The young and the old cried as the skies glowed red with the reflection of alien engines. The heavens themselves looked like fire, and then the fire became real. From orbit, a single Empire warship released a beam of light so bright the night turned to day. It shot through the sky with impossible speed and struck the ocean off the coast of Japan. For a moment there was only silence. Then the water rose into the air in a wall taller than mountains. The shockwave shattered windows across cities. Whole villages vanished in the flood. It was a demonstration, not war, not yet. The Empire wanted Earth to understand what awaited if they refused. Fear spread faster than the waves. People screamed into phones, begging leaders to surrender. But others shouted that humanity must fight, that slavery would be worse than death. Families were torn apart by argument as much as by fear. Children clung to parents as the ground shook beneath them. The Empire's voice returned, "You have 1 day to decide, surrender or perish. 24 hours. The fleet hung silent after that. Immense shapes watching, waiting. Their weapons glowed faintly like suns caged in metal. Humanity had never felt so small. In underground bases, generals studied the enemy. Every calculation ended in disaster. Missiles would never reach the ships before being destroyed. Fighters would be erased before leaving the atmosphere. Even nuclear fire would do little against such shields. Yet in those same rooms, some leaders, whispered of another path. If they must fall, let them fall with a warning that would shake the stars. Humanity could not win with weapons, but perhaps they could win with fear. On the streets, the hours passed like years. Rumors spread. Some said the Empire would not attack again if Earth stayed silent. Some said surrender had already been signed in secret. Others claimed hidden weapons slept beneath deserts and mountains, ready to strike back. People searched the sky for hope and found only the glow of alien warships. Night came again, but the sky did not return. Instead of stars, there was only the endless shadow of the fleet. Cities beneath them flickered with failing power as satellites were blocked. The world felt like a prisoner locked in a dark cell, but deep in bunkers beneath mountains, the leaders of Earth wrote their answer. It was short, final, dangerous. Not surrender, not silence, an ultimatum of their own. Humanity had never faced the galaxy before, but now the galaxy had brought war to their door. They would not kneel. They would not beg. And if Earth must burn, it would burn loudly enough for every star to hear. As the first dawn broke, the skies still burned red with the Empire's shadow. Children cried, families prayed, soldiers clenched weapons that could not protect them. And somewhere far above, the commanders of the Galactic Empire waited to hear Earth's decision. They expected fear. They expected surrender. But what came instead would echo across the stars forever. The voice of the Galactic Empire still echoed in the minds of every human on Earth long after the broadcast ended. It was a voice that carried no warmth and no hate. It was the voice of inevitability. The ultimatum was simple: 24 hours to surrender or be destroyed. The skies were no longer a place of dreams, but a ceiling of fear. The Empire's ships hovered in silence above the planet like black clouds too heavy to move. Every person on Earth felt the weight of those hours. Every second stretched into eternity. In the cities, the streets became rivers of people. Some ran to stores and filled carts with food they thought might save them if war began. Some filled temples and churches and whispered prayers into the air. Others stood still in shock, staring upward as if by watching the sky long enough they might understand what had come. Fires broke out in places where fear turned to anger. Soldiers tried to keep order, but their own hands shook as they gripped rifles that would never reach the enemy above. News channels flickered with panic. Anchors spoke too fast and cut each other off. Every station replayed the same message from the Empire. Every replay made it feel heavier. Interviews with scientists, generals, and priests offered no comfort. One scientist whispered that the Empire's ships were larger than anything Earth could imagine. A general admitted on live television that Earth's missiles would be destroyed before they left the atmosphere. A priest said only a miracle could save humanity now. In secret underground chambers, the leaders of nations sat together for the first time in history. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, they gathered around maps and screens that showed the black silhouettes in orbit. The air in the room was heavy with fear. No one spoke of victory. The question was survival. Could humanity surrender and live? Or would surrender mean chains worse than death? A man from the east slammed his hand on the table. He shouted that surrender would mean slavery for every child on Earth. A woman from the west answered that resistance would mean extinction before the sun rose again. Another leader whispered that maybe extinction was better than bending a knee to masters from the stars. The arguments rose like thunder, voices cracked with despair. But beneath the shouting, there was one silent truth: they could not win. Even so, some leaders refused to bow. They said humanity had always been small compared to its enemies. Empires had risen and fallen before. Earth had survived plagues and wars and disasters. Why not this too? They spoke of courage, of defiance, of making a stand that would echo through time. They did not know what weapon they could use. They did not know how long humanity could last, but they knew surrender would break the human spirit forever. Outside the bunkers, the hours drained away. In every country, clocks ticked like hammers. Families huddled together in apartments and basements. Parents tried to calm children with stories about brave heroes who fought impossible battles. Old men sat silent, staring at the floor, remembering wars of the past. Lovers held hands tighter than ever before. Strangers embraced in the streets as if they might not see another sunrise. Then rumors began to spread. A voice whispered in a crowd in New York that leaders were about to surrender. In Tokyo, another voice whispered that secret weapons hidden under oceans were about to fire. In Cairo, someone claimed the aliens were bluffing and would never strike. Again, fear twisted into confusion. People argued, some begged for surrender, others demanded resistance. The world trembled not just from the empire above, but from the division within. Above it all, the ships of the empire remained silent. They did not move. They did not fire. They only waited. Their patience was more terrifying than violence. It was the patience of hunters who already knew the kill belonged to them. Every second of waiting was a reminder that Earth's future was not in its own hands. In the bunkers, the leaders finally stopped shouting. They sat in silence, eyes hollow with exhaustion. They all knew the choice had to be made. A woman stood slowly. Her voice was low but steady. She said, "Humanity must send a message back to the stars. Not surrender, not silence. A message that would tell the galaxy that Earth was not afraid to fight, even if it meant death." At first no one answered, then one by one they nodded. It was madness, it was hopeless, but it was also the only way to remain human. Writers and translators were called in. Every word was debated. The message had to be short and final. It had to speak not just to the Empire, but to every ear that might hear it across the stars. After hours of struggle, the message was complete. It said, Earth would never kneel. It said, if the Empire wanted the planet, it would have to drown it in blood. It said humanity would fight with stones if it had no weapons left. It said humanity's spirit would not break. The words were sharp like blades. They were chosen to cut deep into the heart of the Empire. But no one knew if they would cut deep enough. When the message was ready, the leaders stared at the screen, where it waited to be sent. A finger hovered over the button. Once sent, there was no return. Silence filled the room. Then the finger pressed. The message launched into the dark, carried on every frequency humanity could touch. It rose into the sky, where the Empire's fleet waited. On Earth, the people did not yet know. They huddled in fear, counting down the last hours of the ultimatum. But above them something changed. On the alien ships, lights flickered. Signals crossed between vessels. For the first time since their arrival, the Empire did not look calm. They looked alert, surprised. The silence of the world broke as devices everywhere came alive again. Radios, televisions, screens on walls and in pockets. The message played. It was humanity's voice, united, defiant. Every person heard it, every child, every soldier, every parent. The words repeated again and again. Humanity will never kneel. Humanity will fight. Humanity will endure. The reaction was chaos and awe. Some cried tears of pride, others screamed in terror, some laughed like madmen. But no one remained silent. The world shook with emotion. Humanity had chosen its path. It was a path of fire and blood. The Empire did not respond right away. Their ships remained still in the night sky, but inside their command decks, alien eyes narrowed. The humans had chosen defiance. It was not what the Empire expected. To them, Earth was only another world to conquer, another name to add to their long history of domination. But something about this defiance felt different. Dangerous. The hours continued to tick down. Humanity waited. The skies glowed faint with the light of alien engines. Families held one another tighter. Soldiers loaded rifles, though they knew the bullets would mean nothing. Leaders whispered prayers in languages older than history, and the ultimatum's clock crept closer to zero. The suspense became unbearable. Would the Empire strike? Would they answer humanity's challenge with fire? Or would something greater rise from the darkness of space? No one knew, but all knew one thing. Humanity's silence was over. Their voice had risen into the stars, and that voice would echo forever, no matter how the Empire answered. The 24 hours ended, and the world held its breath. The ultimatum of the Empire was complete, and Earth had answered. No surrender, no silence. A voice of defiance carried into the stars. Humanity waited for the response. People clung to each other in streets and homes. Leaders sat in bunkers, staring at screens. Soldiers stood at bases with fingers tight around weapons that would not save them. The sky above remained dark and heavy with alien ships. For one long moment, there was only silence. Then light broke the night. A beam shot from orbit with a speed no eye could follow. It was brighter than the sun and straighter than any lightning. It cut through the sky and struck an orbital defense station high above the Pacific. The station was meant to guard against missiles. It had been built with pride. Its guns were the largest humanity had ever launched into space. None of it mattered. The alien beam touched it, and in less than a heartbeat the station turned into dust and fire. Pieces of molten metal rained down toward the ocean. The beam ended. The sky was quiet again. But the silence felt worse. Humanity had seen the first strike. Every defense they had prepared for years meant nothing. The Empire had destroyed it as if it were paper. In cities, the news spread instantly. Screens replayed the destruction again and again. People screamed at the sight. Families fell to their knees. Some shouted in rage at the heavens. Others collapsed. In despair, panic spread faster than fire. If one station could be erased so easily, how long before cities themselves would burn? The leaders in their hidden chambers felt their last hope slipping away. They had known the defenses were weak, but they had not expected them to vanish in a single breath. A general slammed his fist into the table so hard his knuckles split. He shouted that they were already dead. A president whispered that surrender would be too late now. Another leader cried openly, face in hands. But amid the despair, one man leaned forward. His voice was calm, though his eyes were sharp with fire. He said the destruction was a test. The Empire could have burned a city, but it had not. It wanted fear, not ashes. It wanted Earth to tremble. He said humanity must not give the Empire what it wanted. They had to answer, not with surrender, but with something the Empire could not predict. The others turned to him with disbelief. What answer could humanity give when its strongest defenses had been erased? But he reminded them that war was not only about weapons, it was about will. And if the Empire sought to frighten Earth into silence, then Earth must shout louder. Far above, the Empire ships shifted. A fleet of smaller vessels broke away from the massive ones. They moved in perfect formation like blades in the sky. Their mission was clear: destroy the rest of Earth's defenses. They descended slowly, deliberately, letting the world see every movement. The warning was clear: soon Earth would be naked before them. Inside control rooms, soldiers watched the screens. As the alien fleet approached, fingers hovered over firing buttons. Commands echoed through headsets. Humanity fired missiles into the sky. They raced upward with thunder, leaving trails of smoke and fire. For a moment, people cheered. For a moment, they believed the missiles might reach the enemy. But before they touched the first alien ship, the sky lit with bursts of energy. The missiles exploded mid-air, torn apart by invisible shields. Not one reached its target. The smaller fleet continued its descent undisturbed. It moved toward the next defense satellites. Humanity fired again and again. Each time the result was the same. Nothing touched the Empire's vessels. People on Earth could only watch as the rest of their shields were stripped away. One by one, the satellites vanished in blinding flashes. Their ruins fell like sparks through the atmosphere, yet not everything was destroyed. In the wreckage of one satellite, a hidden chamber cracked open. Inside lay a device humanity had never admitted to having. It was not a missile or a laser. It was a signal, a beacon. As the satellite broke apart, the beacon activated. A pulse raced through the void, too fast to stop. It was not directed at the Empire. It was directed outward, past them, beyond them, into the deeper dark of space. The Empire noticed. Sensors. Screamed. Commanders barked orders in alien tongues. They tried to jam the signal, but it was too late. The pulse had already gone. They destroyed the last pieces of the satellite, but their unease did not fade. The humans had done something unexpected, something the Empire did not understand. On Earth, no one knew of the beacon yet. They saw only destruction. But in secret rooms, the leaders exchanged grim looks. Some of them knew. The beacon was humanity's last desperate card. It was not a weapon to destroy the Empire, but a message to something else, something hidden, something dangerous. The hours that followed were heavy with dread. The skies glowed. With alien fire as the last defenses crumbled, cities grew quiet, waiting for the killing blow. Families whispered final words. Lovers held one another for the last time. Children asked questions parents could not answer. Would the ships burn? The ground? Would the oceans boil? Would there be any survivors? No one knew. Yet the Empire did not fire again. After destroying the satellites, their fleet returned to orbit. They hovered in silence, as they had before. It was as if they, too, were waiting. But waiting for what? Inside their command ships, the aliens argued. Their leader demanded to know why. The humans had chosen defiance instead of surrender. Another officer said humanity was weak and foolish, not worth the trouble. Yet another warned that the beacon troubled them. He said the humans might not be as alone as they seemed. He said the galaxy was wide and full of old secrets. The leader dismissed him, but unease spread. The humans had done something no other conquered world had ever dared. On Earth, people noticed the pause. They looked at the sky and wondered why. Fire had not yet fallen. Some believed the aliens were preparing something worse. Some believed humanity's message had worked. Hope and fear twisted together like two sides of the same coin. In the bunkers, the leaders debated again. Some said they must prepare another message, louder, stronger. Others said they must pray the beacon would bring help from beyond. A few whispered that maybe they had awakened something far worse than the Empire. But the people did not know any of this. They only knew that they had survived another day, another night. The sky still burned with alien ships, but Earth was still alive. They clung to that fragile truth like a lifeline. Above them, the Empire waited, their weapons ready, their patience long. But somewhere in the dark beyond their fleet, the beacon traveled. It carried a signal older than Earth itself. A signal meant, for ears not human and not kind. The question was no longer whether humanity would survive the Empire's strike. The question was, what else might hear humanity's cry and answer from the shadows of space? The world woke to silence once again, and that silence was heavier than bombs. The Empire's fleet still circled the planet like a crown of blades. The people of Earth stared at the sky, expecting fire, yet no fire came. The aliens had spoken there. Ultimatum and humanity had answered. Earth had shouted back with defiance. No surrender, no kneeling, only a promise to fight until the end. The Empire had answered with a strike that erased defenses like toys, but then they stopped. They waited. And waiting was its own weapon. Every television and every radio flickered with the same question. Why had the Empire not finished them? Scientists filled screens with guesses. Military officials lied with steady faces. Priests spoke of signs. But no one knew. Fear grew with every passing hour because fear thrived in silence. It was easier to face fire than the unknown. In bunkers, the leaders sat around glowing screens. They whispered of the beacon hidden inside the destroyed satellite. The pulse had already gone out. No one knew if anything had heard it. No one knew if anything would answer. But all of them felt the weight of that choice. If the beacon reached the wrong ears, Earth might have called not salvation, but damnation. Still, the message had gone. It could not be taken back. The Empire ships began broadcasting again, not images this time, not demands. Only a repetition of Earth's own words. The defiant message, the human ultimatum. The alien warships repeated it across the stars in every tongue. Humanity's voice rang out again and again, not from Earth, but from the very vessels that threatened to destroy it. The Empire was mocking them, using their own courage to shame them. But across the galaxy, others listened. Slave races under the Empire's rule heard those words for the first time. On worlds wrapped in chains and silence, people froze as alien voices echoed Earth's defiance. They whispered to each other in secret. They asked questions long forbidden. Could the Empire be resisted? Could a small world stand against the giants of the galaxy? Even as the Empire mocked, rebellion stirred like embers touched by wind. Back on Earth, the people heard their own words coming back from the sky. Some thought it was a trap. Others thought it was proof their message was spreading. Crowds gathered in squares, listening to the broadcasts. Parents held children high so they could hear. Strangers clasped hands. The words sounded stronger each time. Humanity will never kneel. Humanity will fight. Humanity will endure. The Empire's commanders did not intend to inspire. They intended to terrify. But something unexpected grew. Pride. A spark of unity. People who had felt helpless now felt seen. Their voice carried through the void. Even if death came, their words would live. That alone gave them strength. In the depths of the command ship of the Empire, alien generals debated. One argued for total destruction. He said the humans must be erased before their words spread too far. Another warned that killing them now would only turn them into martyrs. Better to break them slowly, show them that resistance was useless, crush their spirit before crushing their bodies. The leader listened in silence. His eyes were cold. He ordered the broadcast to continue. Let the humans believe their voice mattered. Let them cling to hope. The greater the hope, the deeper the despair when it was torn away. But the leader did not know that hope was not so easy to break. In cities across Earth, people began to prepare in new ways. Farmers shared food with neighbors. Engineers worked to rebuild power grids the Empire had crippled. Hackers flooded dark networks with plans to confuse alien signals. Children drew pictures of stars with words written beneath them. We will not kneel. Fear was still there, but alongside it something else grew. Resolve. The waiting continued. Days passed like years. The Empire's fleet remained still, but every city felt its shadow. Soldiers patrolled streets though they knew they were powerless. Families stayed close together. Governments tried to project strength, but their faces betrayed exhaustion. Yet through it all, the human message repeated again and again through alien voices. The echo of defiance traveled far. Then something strange happened. A signal returned. It was faint, broken, almost impossible to detect. But the scientists in hidden bases caught it. They stared at the screens with wide eyes. It was not from the Empire. It was not from Earth. It was something else, something beyond. The beacon had been heard. Someone or something had answered. The leaders were told at once. They crowded around the equipment as the signal played. It was not words at first, only tones and patterns like a song made of static. But within it, there was meaning, a message hidden deep. Slowly the translators worked. Slowly the code gave way. The message became clear. It said, "We hear you." It said, "We remember." It said, "Your defiance is our defiance." And then it said, "We are coming." The room fell into silence. No one breathed. No one moved. Questions swirled. Who were they? What did they mean by remember? And most of all, was this salvation or another doom? Some leaders shouted with joy, believing allies were on the way. Others warned that trust in the unknown could be fatal. Yet even as they argued, one truth was undeniable. Humanity was not alone. The Empire noticed the signal too. Their ships shifted in orbit. Their commanders snarled at each other in alien tongues. They knew the humans had done something dangerous. Their mocking broadcasts stopped. The silence returned, but it was no longer the silence of control. It was the silence of fear. The Empire was listening as much as humanity. On Earth, the people sensed something had changed. The alien voices no longer echoed their defiance. The skies seemed unsettled. Rumors flew like fire. Some said other worlds had risen against the Empire. Some said ancient allies had returned. Some said monsters older than time itself were on the way. Hope and dread twisted tighter than ever before. In the darkness of night, people gathered on rooftops, staring at the stars. They whispered to one another. If someone was coming, would they arrive in time? Would they be friend or foe? No one knew, but everyone felt it. The balance had shifted. Humanity's ultimatum had not only reached the Empire, it had reached beyond. The waiting grew sharper. The Empire's fleet now moved restlessly above the planet. Lights glowed along their hulls like nervous fire. Scouts were sent farther out into space. They searched for signs of whatever had answered. Their commanders were no longer mocking. They were hunting. In the bunkers, leaders prepared new messages. They debated what to say if the unknown arrival was friendly. They debated what to do if it was hostile. They argued until their voices broke. But in their hearts, each of them knew this was beyond their control. Humanity had cast its voice into the void. The void had answered. Now they would live or die by what came. In the streets, the people no longer whispered only of fear. They spoke of possibility. They sang songs of resistance. They painted walls with words of defiance. They lit candles in windows as signs of hope. Even children laughed again for the first time since the sky burned. The fire of pride was fragile, but it burned. High above, the Empire watched with unease. They had crushed countless worlds, but none had reacted like this. None had sent messages beyond. None had made the galaxy stir. The human ultimatum had become more than a refusal. It had become a spark, and sparks could start fires the Empire had spent centuries trying to smother. The night stretched long. The stars beyond the fleet shimmered with quiet promise. The people of Earth did not know what would arrive or when, but they knew something had changed. Their words no longer belonged only to them. Their ultimatum had escaped into the galaxy, and the galaxy was beginning to tremble. The stars above Earth flickered like cold eyes watching. The Galactic Empire's ships circled silently as if the planet were already theirs. Yet beneath that silence, a storm was building. Humanity's message had gone out into the void. Someone had answered. The words still haunted every leader and soldier. We hear you, we remember, we are coming. The Empire had stopped mocking. Their broadcasts ended. Their fleets moved uneasily. Something had changed. People across Earth clung to that faint signal as if it were a lifeline. For the first time since the skies had burned with alien fire, there was something more than fear. There was anticipation, perhaps hope, but hope was dangerous. It could lift hearts only to break them harder when crushed. The leaders knew this. They whispered in hidden bunkers that humanity could not depend on strangers. Help might never come, or worse, help might come with chains even heavier than the Empire's. Yet no matter their doubts, the people believed, and belief could not be silenced. The Empire, too, felt the change. In their great command ship, the High General paced like a caged beast. His claws clicked against the floor. His officers reported that their scouts had gone silent. A fleet sent toward Jupiter had vanished. No signals, no wreckage, nothing. They had simply disappeared. The general snarled. He demanded answers. His soldiers whispered of shadows in the dark and machines older than empires. None dared say the word out loud. Fear. The news spread quickly on Earth. Rumors of a missing fleet raced through every street and home. Some said humans had destroyed them with secret weapons. Some said allies had arrived already. Some whispered of ancient guardians hidden in the solar system. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. The Empire was not invincible. For the first time, people dared to imagine victory, even if only for a moment. In the skies above Jupiter, strange lights flickered. Hidden observatories caught faint images before their feeds were cut. Enormous shadows moved among the planet's storms. They were not human ships. They were not Empire ships. They were something else. Shapes vast and unnatural, like machines carved from the bones of dead stars. They drifted with silent purpose, their surfaces glowing with symbols that no human could read. The lost fleet had gone to investigate. They had not returned. In the bunkers, scientists pored over the data until their eyes blurred. They argued about what the shapes could be. Some said alien allies answering the beacon. Others said weapons left behind by civilizations long gone. One whispered that they might not be allies or enemies, but something beyond those words. Something that moved only for itself. The leaders listened with pale faces. Whatever was in Jupiter's shadow had already acted. The Empire's fleet was proof. The Empire knew too. Their ships shifted in orbit above Earth like predators sensing another predator nearby. More fleets were called from deep space. Reinforcements poured in. Soon the night sky held even more black silhouettes blotting out the stars. The Empire would not be caught weak again. If there was another power stirring in the solar system, they would crush it. And if Earth had called it, then Earth would pay for daring to reach beyond its cage. The people of Earth felt the weight of the build-up. The sky grew thicker with alien shadows. The air felt heavy, as if the whole planet had been pressed under the hand of giants. Every family looked upward and waited for fire, but the fire did not fall. The Empire was holding back, focused not only on Earth, but on the threat beyond Jupiter. The silence was a thin thread, and it could break at any moment. Inside the command ship of the Empire, the High General argued with his council. He demanded to strike Earth now, to crush the humans before their hope grew stronger. Others argued to hold position, to wait and see what lurked in the outer system. Their words clashed like blades. The general roared that hope was more dangerous than any weapon. But still, he waited. Even he feared what had destroyed his fleet. In the streets of Earth, people whispered of the missing enemy ships. Mothers told children that the stars themselves had risen to protect them. Old men spoke of legends, of ancient beings hidden in the dark. Soldiers looked to the sky and felt their hands steady for the first time. If the Empire could bleed, then maybe humanity could make it bleed again. But not everyone believed. In the shadows of cities, whispers grew. Some claimed the leaders were hiding the truth, that the fleet was not destroyed but bargaining, that the beacon had called horrors even worse than the Empire. Fear divided the people even as pride tried to unite them. Tension twisted every heart. In the hidden bunkers, the leaders made a choice. They would send another message, not to the Empire, but to whatever had answered before. The beacon had already reached someone. Perhaps it could reach them again. The scientists warned of risk. Every signal sent into the void was a signal that could be twisted. But the leaders were desperate. They chose to gamble. Humanity had already gambled its survival on defiance. Why not gamble again? The message was short. It said humanity was under siege. It said they would never kneel. It said if allies existed in the shadows, then now was the time to rise. The signal launched again into the void, carried on every wave Earth could send. The people did not know of it. Only the leaders watched with held breath. The Empire's sensors detected the pulse. Anger erupted in their command decks. The High General slammed his fist against steel. He swore Earth would be burned for its insolence. Yet still he waited. Still his ships hung motionless in the night, because beyond Jupiter something stirred. The shadows were moving again. Days stretched thin. The people of Earth counted every hour. They expected destruction, but it did not come. Instead, the sky above Jupiter grew brighter. Strange lights pulsed in patterns like language. Telescopes captured fragments before being blinded. The lights spread across the storms like veins of fire. Something immense was waking. Something that had been still for ages was now alive. The Empire responded. Their reinforcements surged outward toward Jupiter. Hundreds of ships, their weapons glowing. They moved with the precision of predators closing in for the kill. The people of Earth watched the streams in terror. The greatest fleet ever gathered was leaving orbit. Not all of it. Enough remained above Earth to destroy it, but the main strength had gone. The war was moving away from the planet. In homes and streets, people whispered in awe. The Empire was afraid. The people dared to breathe again. Soldiers raised their heads higher. Children cheered, though they did not understand. For the first time, the eyes of the hunters were no longer fixed entirely on Earth. The leaders, too, felt the change. Their faces still pale, but their voices steadier. They told one another that perhaps Earth had bought time. Perhaps the beacon had done more than call for help. It had distracted the enemy. It had shifted the battlefield. Hope was no longer only a word. It was a chance. But hope was fragile. Far out near Jupiter, the fleets of the Empire vanished into the storms. The sky above Earth grew quiet again, but everyone knew the silence would not last. If the shadows beyond Jupiter were friends, they might return with salvation. If they were enemies, they might return with doom. Either way, humanity had changed. The course of the war. The night stretched long and heavy. Families held candles by windows. Soldiers stood guard with rifles, though they were useless. The stars beyond the alien ships seemed brighter, as if waiting too. Humanity had chosen to defy. The Empire had been forced to react. And in the cold storms of Jupiter, something vast and unknown was moving. The people of Earth did not know if they had summoned angels or demons. They did not know if help was real or only death in another shape. But one thing was clear. The Galactic Empire was no longer calm. Their fleets trembled. Their silence cracked. The hunters had become the hunted. And Earth had survived long enough to see the galaxy itself shiver. The storms of Jupiter churned with unnatural light, and every eye on Earth turned toward that distant planet. For days, the skies above Earth had been filled with the Empire's ships, dark shadows blotting out the stars, yet now the enemy had moved. A massive fleet had left orbit and sailed into the outer system. Their target was not Earth itself, but something far more mysterious. The unknown shapes drifting among the gas giant storms. People across the world followed the news with breathless fear. The cameras and telescopes captured only fragments before signals went dark, but those fragments were enough to terrify and amaze. Enormous structures, bigger than mountains, glowed faintly through the storms. They were not natural. Their surfaces pulsed with strange patterns, symbols alive with meaning no one on Earth could read. The Empire's missing fleet had gone to investigate. None had returned. And now the greatest armada in history sailed toward the same place. In underground bunkers, the leaders gathered again. The scientists explained that the objects had been dormant, perhaps for thousands of years, hidden inside the planet's chaotic atmosphere. Some called them ships, others said machines. A few whispered they might be living things wearing the shape of machines. Whatever they were, they had awakened when the Empire drew close. The beacon humanity had sent might have roused them, or perhaps it had only reminded them of something they had been waiting for. The leaders argued deep into the night. Some believed these ancient things could be allies. Others warned they might see humanity as insects, no different from the Empire. One general shouted that it did not matter. If they fought the Empire at all, even by accident, humanity must use the chance to strike back. But no one truly knew what would come from the storms. On the streets of Earth, the mood shifted again. Fear was still everywhere, but now it mixed. With wild hope, crowds filled city squares with candles, their light flickering against the dark sky. People chanted the words of the Ultimatum again and again. Humanity will never kneel. It spread like fire, carried by voices across continents. For the first time since the sky had burned, people were not only waiting for death, they were waiting for a sign. Above them, the Empire did not answer. Their ships hovered like vultures, their weapons glowing faint. The great command ship circled endlessly, its alien leader watching the outer system. Inside its halls, the High General raged. He demanded his officers explain what the things in Jupiter's storms were. He demanded to know why entire fleets had vanished. His officers offered nothing but silence and data full of static. The machines did not obey logic. Their energy signatures rose and fell in patterns no one understood. The general's fury grew. He ordered the destruction of everything in the outer system. Not one shadow would remain. And so the battle began. From Earth, the people saw only flashes at first, bursts of light far across the black, brighter than stars. Then came the streams of images from hidden probes. Alien warships moved in perfect formation. Beams of impossible fire cut into the storms. Explosions rippled across Jupiter's atmosphere, but the shadows did not vanish. They moved, slowly at first, then with sudden speed. Shapes larger than the Empire's greatest vessels tore themselves free of the storms. They glowed with ancient power, their surfaces alive with flowing light. They did not fire missiles or lasers, they simply released waves of energy that rippled like storms through space. Empire ships caught in those waves crumpled like paper. Shields shattered. Hulls folded in on themselves. The greatest armada humanity had ever seen was being broken like toys in the hands of giants. On Earth, the people gasped as the images streamed in. Whole fleets that had blotted out the stars were ripped apart in seconds. Empire ships tried to flee, but the ancient machines were faster than anything the galaxy had known. They moved with purpose, as if the very laws of physics bent around them. One ship after another vanished into fire and silence. The leaders watched with wide eyes. For the first time, they saw the Empire not as invincible hunters, but as prey. The question that gripped them was simple. Were these machines allies, or would Earth be next? In the Empire's command ship, panic spread. Officers shouted. The High General roared in fury. But even his iron will could not hide the truth. Their fleet was being destroyed. The machines were older and stronger than anything the Empire had ever faced. Their history books had spoken of old wars, of powers lost before the Empire was born. The general had always dismissed them as myths. Now he realized those myths had teeth. The machines did not stop with the fleet. They turned toward the inner system. Slowly, deliberately, they moved out of Jupiter's storms and into the black. The lights along their surfaces pulsed in rhythm, like a heartbeat. Every telescope on Earth caught their approach. Every channel broadcast it live. Humanity had wanted salvation. Instead, they saw giants moving closer. Panic erupted again. Crowds screamed. Some called the machines angels, others called them demons. Fear swept the world in a wave. Humanity's leaders sent desperate signals, pleading with the machines to identify themselves. There was no reply. The machines drifted onward, silent, their strange patterns glowing brighter. The Empire's remaining fleet around Earth shifted uneasily. They fired warning shots into space, but the machines ignored them. The High General ordered his ships to hold their ground. He swore he would not retreat. Yet even he felt his claws tremble. The machines were not hunting Earth or the Empire alone. They were moving with a purpose older than both. On Earth, scientists studied the signals flowing from the machines. The patterns were not random. They carried information, songs of mathematics, codes of memory. Something was being spoken, but too vast and too alien for humans to decode. Still, the scientists worked. Every second felt like a race between understanding and destruction. In the cities, people held their breath. They watched the skies grow brighter with alien lights. They whispered to each other that maybe these machines had heard the ultimatum. Maybe they respected defiance. Maybe they had waited for a world brave enough to say no. But fear lingered. What if defiance only marked Earth as a target? The machines reached Saturn's orbit. The Empire's fleets that had been sent to guard the ringed world opened fire. The battle was short and brutal. Flashes lit the sky for hours, visible even from Earth with the naked eye. When it ended, the Empire's ships were gone. Only the machines remained. They turned again. Now their path pointed straight toward Earth. The world fell into silence. Families huddled in fear. Soldiers gripped weapons that would never matter. Leaders stared at screens, their mouths dry. The ultimatum had carried across the stars. Something had heard it. Something had come. But what it wanted, no one knew. Above Earth, the Empire prepared for the final clash. Their weapons glowed brighter than ever before. Their commander's voice thundered through alien halls. He swore that the Empire would not kneel to ghosts. He swore they would destroy even the ancients. Yet his eyes betrayed doubt. The machines continued forward. Their glow reached into the dark, painting the heavens with patterns of fire. Humanity watched as their future approached. Hope and terror twisted together until they were the same thing. And all across the planet, people whispered the same words to themselves. Humanity will never kneel. Humanity will fight. Humanity will endure. But as the machines closed the distance, the question grew heavier. Would humanity endure as free people, or as the dust beneath the feet of giants, older than time itself? The machines moved through the blackness of space with slow certainty, their immense frames glowing like drifting stars. Every pulse of light across their surfaces echoed with strange patterns that no human or Empire scholar could read. They were vast beyond comprehension, larger than the Empire's mightiest dreadnoughts. Their size alone made the fleets above Earth tremble. Yet it was not their size that struck fear. It was the silence. The machines spoke no words, made no demands. They simply came closer on Earth people. Crowded streets, rooftops and open fields, staring upward. Though the machines were still far from the planet, their glow painted the heavens like a second. Dawn across continents, voices rose. Some prayed, some sang, some screamed. Children clutched at their parents, asking if these were the saviors. The signal had called others, whispered that salvation never came freely. In hidden bunkers, the leaders met. Again, their faces hollow from sleepless nights. Screens flickered with grainy images of the approaching machines. Scientists pored over the signals pulsing across their surfaces. The rhythms seemed mathematical, purposeful, but too complex to decode. Some believed they were trying to speak. Others warned they might be a warning, not a greeting. One scientist whispered that the machines might not even see humanity at all, that to them Earth was nothing more than a stone in their path. The silence of that idea was heavier than any weapon. The Empire was far from silent in their great command ship. The High General roared orders, his fleets formed into layered walls around Earth. Cannons charged and shields flared with power. The General's voice carried across channels. He swore that the Empire had ruled 1,000 stars, and no ghosts of the past would take what was theirs. His fury masked the truth. His claws twitched against the console. His eyes burned with unease. The stories of ancients long dead had been told as warnings to children. Now he faced them alive. The first clash came near Mars. Fragments of the Empire's scattered patrols met the machines they fired in disciplined lines. Beams of white light cut through the void. But the machines barely slowed their surfaces, shimmered with waves that bent energy aside, as if light itself obeyed their will. Then they answered not with fire, not with missiles, but with a pulse, a wave that rippled outward, invisible at first, until ships caught within it crumbled metal, folded like paper crews, screamed as their signals cut to static. In seconds, dozens of ships vanished, not destroyed but erased, their remains scattered in silent dust. The Empire's formation shattered. The news reached Earth almost instantly. Every broadcast carried it, whole fleets erased, as if they had never existed. The people gasped. Fear swept the streets. Some cheered, believing the machines were destroying their enemy. For them, others fell to their knees, certain Earth was next. Panic and hope twisted together. No one could tell which feeling was stronger. Inside Earth's bunkers, the leaders argued louder than ever. One shouted, they must send another message, another plea to the machines to declare humanity's defiance and beg recognition. Another screamed that any signal could mark them as a target and bring doom faster. Generals demanded to use the distraction to strike at the Empire's fleets above Earth, to bleed them, while their eyes were turned, but others warned that any move might draw the machines closer. The room pulsed with tension until silence fell. All eyes turned to the screen. The machines were coming. The Empire rallied again. Their remaining fleets shifted closer to Earth, forming rings of steel. The High General snarled at his officers that the ancients were nothing more than old weapons abandoned by weak races. He would show the galaxy that the Empire bowed to no one, yet his voice cracked as he said it. Because he could see the truth. His fleets were bleeding. Every clash drained more strength than could ever be replaced. The machines did not hurry. They advanced step by step through the void, every movement deliberate, their glowing symbols spread in waves across their surfaces, as if speaking to one another without words. One moved past Saturn, its sheer bulk casting a shadow longer than moons. Its light painted the rings with fire. When it turned its path toward Earth, the people below felt it in their bones. Families huddled in silence. Waiting soldiers stood guard, though they knew rifles would mean nothing. Children asked questions no parent could answer. Are they friends? Are they gods? Will they burn us or save us? No voice dared speak certainty. Every answer was drowned in the sound of silence from the stars. The scientists worked without pause, their eyes bloodshot as they stared at streams of alien patterns. The rhythms were repeating, growing more complex, each pulse like notes in a song. One scientist cried out that it was language, another that it was a code, another that it was memory. But still no one could break it. Still no meaning came, and time was running out. Above Earth, tension snapped. The machines reached the edge of the Empire's final line. The general ordered his ships to fire every cannon, every missile. The night sky above the planet lit like a second sun. Beams of fire streaked outward. The heavens blazed as the Empire unleashed the fury of 1,000 worlds. But when the light faded, the machines remained, their glow unbroken, their march unhindered. They pulsed once, and the nearest fleet folded into silence. Earth saw it all. Children cried, soldiers cursed, leaders went pale. The Empire was strong beyond reason, but the machines were something else. Something older, something terrible and magnificent. The question rang louder than ever. Were these saviors or executioners? The machines paused for the first time. They hung in space, their lights flickering in faster rhythms. One after another, waves passing between them as though they debated the silence. Stretched across the stars, humanity held its breath. The Empire tensed every cannon, hot, every shield alive. The machines pulsed again, and then their light spread outward across the void. On-Earth screens flickered. The lights were not random. They formed shapes, maps, stars in patterns no human had ever seen. And then among them, Earth itself appeared. The scientists froze. The machines knew Earth, they had marked it. Their meaning was unclear, but the symbol of the planet shone. At the heart of their message, the world erupted into fear. Some screamed they had been chosen for salvation. Others shouted they had been marked for destruction. The Empire's general spat with rage. He screamed that the machines had claimed Earth, that no ancient power would steal his prey. He ordered an immediate strike on the planet. He would burn humanity to ash before letting the ancients touch it. His officers hesitated, their eyes wide. Even they feared striking now, but his voice brooked. No argument. The Empire's weapons turned toward Earth, and then the machines moved again, faster than before. They shifted into formation surrounding the planet from afar, their lights blazing brighter, as if daring the Empire to act. The general roared, but even he felt the shadow of their will. He ordered his fleet to hold, but the fury in his voice could not hide his fear. On Earth, the people stared upward, the sky filled with alien silhouettes, Empire ships bristling with fire machines glowing. Like stars, the world was caught between two powers, one ancient and silent, one brutal and furious, both larger than anything humanity had ever known. The people whispered their defiance again. Humanity will never kneel. But now their voices trembled, because the choice might no longer be theirs. The night stretched heavy. The machines did not fire. The Empire did not strike. The planet waited, every heart beating like a drum in the silence. The machines pulsed again, their symbols spreading across the heavens, their meaning still locked, their decision unknown. Earth hung between annihilation and salvation. The balance of the galaxy teetered, and humanity's ultimatum still echoed across the stars, unanswered but not unheard. The silence was the loudest thing in the universe. As the machines surrounded Earth, their massive frames glowing like suns, their symbols pulsing across their surfaces in rhythms no one could yet understand. The Empire's fleets floated in formation above the planet, their weapons primed, their shields burning bright. The High General's voice roared through the alien command ship. He ordered patience, he ordered strength, but his claws gripped the railing so tightly the metal bent on Earth. The people waited. They filled the streets and squares, staring into the sky. Voices whispered to each other. No one could sleep. Families held one another. Soldiers stood guard, though they knew their rifles were useless. Children asked again and again, are they here to save us or to destroy us? And no one had an answer. The scientists watched their screens, eyes red from exhaustion. Streams of alien light flickered faster than ever across the machines. They were speaking to one another across space, in a code that defied human logic, but slowly patterns began to emerge. One scientist shouted that the rhythm repeated, another that the symbols connected to constellations. Still another whispered that the machines were not just speaking, they were remembering. They were unlocking something. In the Empire's flagship, the High General felt his control slipping. His fleets had already lost. Too much, too many ships shattered, too many officers gone. The machines were stronger than any enemy he had ever faced. But still his pride burned too hot to accept defeat. He snarled to his crew that the ancients were relics, ghosts clinging to power. They had no right to stand against the Empire, yet his eyes betrayed the truth. He knew if he lost here, the Empire itself would fracture. The machines pulsed again. Their glow spread across the black in a wave that touched both Empire ships and Earth itself. For a heartbeat, all communications flickered. Screens went dark, lights faltered, then power returned. But with it came a signal clearer than anything before, a deep vibration, a sound that was not sound. It rolled through every frequency, every system. Every human heart could feel it like a drum in their bones. The machines were speaking at last. The scientists scrambled to decode the pulse words, spilled across screens, fragments of language, broken symbols, turning into pieces of meaning. It was not perfect, but enough. The machines were not asking, they were declaring the words formed slowly and with terrible weight. They remembered humanity. They remembered the defiance, the ultimatum had been heard across the stars, and the machines recognized it. They declared that humanity would stand trial not before the Empire, but before them. Fear rippled across the planet. What did it mean? A trial? Who would decide what judgment would be? What punishment would follow in the streets? People cried out, some in terror, others in wild hope, believing a trial meant recognition that humanity was not dust, but a people worth hearing. The High General spat with rage. He shouted that the machines had no right to claim what was his prey. He ordered his ships to fire on the planet before the ancients could act. His officers hesitated, their eyes wide, their claws trembling. Even they saw the madness in striking Earth now, but the general's fury was law. His cannons began to turn downward. The machines moved before the order could be carried out. Beams of light, not fire but walls of force, erupted across the sky, cutting. Between the Empire's fleets and the planet, every weapon aimed at Earth fell silent, disabled in an instant. The general screamed in fury. His voice broke through the halls, but even his rage could not hide the truth. He had been disarmed, his prey stolen from his grasp on Earth. The people saw it all. They saw the machines shielding their planet. They saw the Empire's fury broken, and for the first time hope roared louder than fear in the streets. People raised their fists to the sky, shouting, "The ultimatum again! Humanity will never kneel." Their voices thundered together, not as whispers, but as a storm across continents. It echoed through the night, carried on, every channel carried into the stars. The machines pulsed again. This time, the patterns were clearer. Humanity would not be erased. Humanity would not be slaves. The machines declared that the choice was their own. Earth would rise or Earth would fall, but the judgment would belong to humanity itself, not the Empire. The trial was not of guilt or innocence, but of strength. Could humanity survive? Could they endure? If they did, the machines would recognize them as equals. If they failed, they would vanish into silence. The scientists relayed the message to the leaders. The leaders relayed it to the world, and for the first time, humanity understood their ultimatum had been answered not by mercy, not by conquest, but by a challenge. The machines had thrown the weight of history upon their shoulders. The Empire broke into chaos. The High General refused to yield. He ordered his ships to attack the machines directly. Fleets surged forward, cannons blazing, but the machines answered with waves of light. Every Empire ship caught in the pulses, folded shields shattering. Hulls crumpling, screams cutting to silence. The battle was short, brutal, absolute when it ended. The skies were clear of the Empire's armada. Only fragments drifted among the stars. The High General's flagship burned, then split apart, a final roar of defiance swallowed by the void. Earth had witnessed it all. The Empire had been broken, crushed, not by human hands, but by powers older than time itself. But the machines had not left. Instead, they remained, their vast forms surrounding the planet, their lights burning brighter than ever, their trial still to come. The people of Earth trembled, but also they stood taller than before. The ultimatum spread louder than it ever had. Not a whisper, not a plea, but a declaration: humanity will never kneel. Across cities, across mountains, across oceans, the words thundered into the sky. The machines pulsed once more, and their meaning was clear. The trial had already begun. It was not a battle of weapons, not a clash of fleets, but a test of will. Humanity had chosen defiance, and the machines had seen it. Now the world would rise or fall, not as victims, but as something greater. As the night ended, dawn broke over Earth, yet the sky still burned with alien light. Families held each other tighter, soldiers stood straighter, leaders spoke with voices steady, though their hands shook. The Empire was gone, but the machines remained, their judgment vast and unknown, humanity's path uncertain, but for the first time, the future was theirs. The ultimatum still echoed across the stars, not as a cry of desperation, but as a vow. Humanity will never kneel. Humanity will endure. Humanity will rise, and among the silent machines drifting like gods above the world, the symbols pulsed brighter as if in answer, as if in respect, as if the story of mankind had only just begun.